Hello, welcome to the daily message for this Monday of Holy Week. When the gospel writers looked upon and reflected upon the passion and crucifixion of Jesus, they tried to make sense of it by looking back into their own scriptures, into the Hebrew scriptures. And one of the places that they looked and found an explanation for the suffering of Jesus was in those verses from the Old Testament known as the suffering servant. And so they looked, for example, at the 53rd chapter of Isaiah, and they heard these words: "Surely he has borne our infirmities and carried our diseases. Yet we accounted him stricken, struck down by God, and afflicted. But he was wounded for our transgressions, crushed for our iniquities. Upon him was the punishment that made us whole, and by his bruises we are healed." We are well aware, especially during this season of Lent, of Jesus' suffering, his passion, his death. But I think it's equally important to reflect on the reason why Jesus suffered and died. In his preaching, Jesus spoke out against those who mistreated and oppressed, especially the poor, the widows, and the orphans, the outcasts of society. He saw these people in particular as being those who are closest to God. And so because of that message, because of his love for the poor and for the widows and for the outcasts of society, Jesus was arrested, he was beaten, and he was crucified. The point of all this is to say that Jesus suffered because he loved. And in that, there is an example for all of us as we try to meditate on and reflect upon the sufferings which we are called upon to endure. Suffering is never a good thing in itself. We know that. Suffering only makes sense when we suffer for what we love, when we suffer for whom we love. All of us are called upon at certain points in our life to suffer for others. Those who are doctors and nurses and therapists suffer and have compassion for their patients. Parents suffer as they watch their children go through the pains of growing up and the mistakes and the failures that they make in growing up into adulthood. Caregivers suffer as they care for ailing parents, spouses, children, and friends. It is love that gives suffering its meaning. And at the same time, it is our suffering that teaches us how to love more fully and how to grow in compassion for others. And so we are called to be suffering servants, just as Jesus was. And we are called upon to learn that it is Jesus who teaches us how to suffer, and Jesus who teaches us how to love. Thank you for watching, and have a blessed day and a blessed Holy Week.